but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing this song. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing, when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing, when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing along.
Hello and welcome to this week's Red Robin podcast, which is powered by 360 Chartered Accountants and Budget Size Auto Centre and presented by me, Chris Johnson. This week I'm joined by a stellar lineup of Rovers fans with Karl Smith, Craig Eskrett, James Purling and Mark Lever all featuring this evening. And what a bumper episode we have in store for you. Firstly, we go over all the big talking points from our Challenge Cup quarter-final victory over the Castleford Tigers, which leaves the Robins just one game from the final at Tottenham. And then we look ahead to Good Friday and our rivals round fixture against our bitter rivals, Hull FC, as we welcome the Black and Whites to Craven Park for the first time since 2019. Lads, we've got loads to get through, not least the news that Tony Smith has apparently opened up contract talks with the club. But before we get into any of that, I want to know what your favourite Derby memory or moment is. And James, I'll start with you.
Oh, gosh. I think it's the one where James Webster dropped a goal in the last minute into the teeth of a howling gale in towards the South Terrace. And all the bin dippers were getting huddled together, trying to keep warm. And the hill, it was just unbelievable drop goal. It was probably the scruffiest drop goal ever. You just literally go over the bar, but that was just outstanding. Yeah,
and then them early days of Super League, they always felt a bit more important, didn't they? They always seemed a bit more to get them victory. What about you, Mark?
I think the playoff at the KC, I think when we beat him, was it 21-4, something like that? Or Scott Morell and everybody, just the away end that day was bouncing that nut in the KC there. So that's one I'll take with me. It was just the passion of Scotty Morell, really, Ben 𝐂𝐿 that brought us all together a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, and if there was one player who really stood out in a derby, it was Scott Morell. One that he seemed to, for a lad who was from outside of the city, he really bought into it. And
absolutely.
Speak to him now. He's featured on our podcast before. He absolutely loves it. He still classes himself as a Rovers fan, and he definitely played well in them derbies. What about you, Craig?
I was actually going to say the one that James had said. Well, my second favourite one was the Magic Weekend with David Hodgson. Like, I know it was in Manchester, but the Rovers fans, when David Hodgson went through, it just went absolutely mental. I'll never forget that moment. And it was better because I was with my mate who was an FC fan.
Oh, without doubt then, yeah. You get a chance to rub it in really well there, don't you? Karl, what about you?
Yeah, Craig just took the words out of my mouth there. I'd second what Craig said. I think the fact of that, he literally went, over straight in front of me and you, and obviously was so drunk. It was great. So yeah, that one for me.
Yeah, I always remember that one about the after scenes in the concourse at the Etihad. I don't think Rovers fans wanted to leave, did they? I think there was partying nearly all night there. So it was, that was a really good one. But before we go into the derby, we're going to discuss our quarter-final victory over the Castleford Tigers, which, of course, we won 34 points to 10. Rovers lined up like this with Lachlan Coote at fullback, Jimmy Kinehorst and Sam Wood out on the right, Sean Kenny-Dowell and Ryan Hall on the left, Mikey Lewis and Rowan Milnes lined up in the halves, with Will Marsh starting at prop, Matty Parcell at hooker, George King, the other prop, Frankie Holton, Kane Lynette and Elliot Minchella. Interchanges were, interestingly, Jordan Abdul, Matty Staunton, Jez Litton and Greg Richards. Before we're going to discuss the game, obviously there's a few notable absentees in that. I didn't actually realise until about an hour before that the reserves were actually playing at the same time as that. We saw Corbin Sims, Brad Takarangi played his first game since obviously coming back into the fold. It was a strong lineup with Ethan Ryan also playing. Will Dagger got a run out. One player though, James, I'll come to you first. How surprised was you to see Corbin Sims in the reserves lineup and not in the squad for Friday night?
Yeah, I must admit I was quite surprised as well. Like I say, I don't think I really realised until later on and sort of looking through the Twitter feed, and they had the reserve team up and Corbin Sims was on there. I thought, wow, and the reserve team actually looked pretty strong, and I thought he probably would have given Sims a run out on Friday. Because he'd put him on for 20 minutes against Warrington, And I thought, well, he might have just given him a bit more of a run out, particularly with Garrett being out the scene, and then just going into rather than going into the tie with just with what was relative. I thought it was quite a light bench in the end with Abdul on the bench. But I was very surprised Sims wasn't in the team.
Yeah, and we'll come on to squad for the Hull game on Friday later on. But obviously, there's a few absentees from there and some returning players. But the Robins started with purpose last Friday and looked like they could blow away the Tigers in similar fashion to the way that they dispatched Warrington last week. And Rovers were on the score sheet after just 4 minutes when Rowan Milne's grubber kick was pounced on by Elliot Minchella with 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿 𝐶𝐜𝐿. Then adding the extras, Paul McShane's kick out on the full from gave the Robins field position, and then they appeared to make it count when Minchella crashed over from a short ball. However, it was referred to the video referee, who surprisingly ruled it out. How surprised was you, Craig, not to see that try awarded? Because Super League games gone by, I know this was a Challenge Cup, but we often see them given, don't we? Especially with the referee awarding it as a try. How surprised was you to see it not awarded?
Well, at the time when I was looking at the big screen, I actually thought it was a try. Then I watched it back when I got home. I'm still bewildered as why it was disallowed. I know they said he was short, but the referee actually gave the try and he was right in front. So yeah, I was pretty shocked by that.
Yeah, and that preceded a bit of Castleford dominance with Ryan Hall. First of all, seen off an attack from Jake Mamo after he kicked through. And then the Tigers created an overlap for Greg Eden, but he was forced into touch and his offload went forward before another overlap was spanned by Farimo's knock-on. A KI high kick into the corner in 20 minutes was juggled by several players, though, before Milnes kept his cool amid the chaos to produce another sublime grubber kick for Minchella, which made the score 12-0. I mean, that was a fantastic bit of play, wasn't it, to keep the ball alive, Karl? The Rovers, that's what we've become accustomed to now, isn't it? That when the ball's popping around, that they're not scared to try things. But Rowan Milnes, the cool head there, wasn't it, with a fantastic rubber kick through?
Yeah, definitely. I think he, as much as we know Rovers are an expansive team, I think he brings a bit of calm and a bit of direction, and I think you need a mix of all sorts. But yeah, it was definitely the Rovers' way once, wasn't it? So yeah, it was a good one. Yeah,
Mark, and since Rowan Milnes has come into the side, he's probably surprised a few people with how well he's adapted and how well he's coped. And them two grubber kicks, just showed the class he's got, didn't they?
I think he's got a lot of control, and as Karl said, I think that obviously Mikey gives you a bit more dynamism, doesn't he? And I think Jordan's a bit bigger, and obviously with his kicking game, he's in high kicking bombs and all that. But as in grubbers and repeat sets wise and setting things up, Milnes has got like old head on young shoulders, I think. So it's really great going forward. Really, got loads of options. So yeah.
Yeah, and James, it was pretty reminiscent of the Warrington game, wasn't it? In that we got a fast start. We was looking to set the game to Castleford like we did against the Wire, and at times Castleford didn't seem to be able to live with us, did they?
No, they didn't. It was great to see, and it just seems like we're getting back to the way we're playing towards the back end of last season, and just really I think it's really setting our stall from the beginning. And I would like Craig, I was quite surprised when that Minchella try was disallowed. I mean, I've looked at it again plenty of times on the TV, and I've seen them given, I've seen them not given, and I just thought, one angle he's short, one angle it looks like he's on a try, but I think it was unlucky not to be 18-0 up after 12 minutes, and it just really blew him off the park, really.
Yeah, and going back to that try, I'm surprised it was disallowed when the referee's giving it as a try, and like you say, you look at a few angles, and surely the benefit of the doubt goes to the attacking team, doesn't it? Because that's your point, especially when the referee's awarding it. But the game wasn't going all Rovers' way. And just you could say that although Rovers did get off to a fast start, they did let Castleford a few times, especially when Evans raced through. But Rovers' scrambling defence did well, didn't it, Craig, to cover there? And it was a feature of the side in the first half, wasn't it, that scrambling defence? Because there was a few times where Castleford, if the ball was going out wide to Eden or through the middle, that we had to cover each other, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought it was quite good. They were kept on the toes, and I think they had to be. Like you said, with Eden, now levels, the quick players, and once you get around, it's going to be difficult catching them. So I thought 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴𝐿, for the majority of, obviously apart from the couple of tries that you'll go through, I thought he was brilliant again.
Yeah, and we saw a mistake from Lachlan Coote, which was we don't see many of them. Castleford took full advantage of a cut-out pass to send former Robin Greg Eden over. Thankfully, O'Brien missed the kick, but that did make the score 12-4 in favour of the Robins. Castleford did manage to reduce the deficit just before the half-time break, though, when a neat move created space for Jordan Turner before he found Greg Eden out on the left, who outstripped the Rovers' cover defence to score. And at half-time, Rovers held a slender 2-point lead. But they did suffer a blow when Jordan Abdul had to leave the field for a head knock assessment. Half-time, Mark, I know you weren't at the game, but obviously you check the score, you see it's 12-10. At that point, you're thinking it must be quite a close game. But is that fair to say, James, or would you say that the scoreline didn't really reflect Rovers' dominance in that first half?
I thought we were better than just having a 2-point lead. But I thought it was interesting that we sort of seemed to go off the boil again when George King went off. If you look at sort of the first 30 minutes when George was on the field, we're at sort of total dominance. It then goes off for a rest, and then Cass get back into it. And I think for the most part of that half, we were certainly the better team and fully deserved the lead. It's just that we'd sort of, I think, just sort of allowed them back into it when King was off.
Yeah, and Karl, James makes a great point, doesn't he, about George King? He's obviously our number one prop. He seems almost untouchable with his work rate and what he does with the ball and in defence. How important is it when he goes off the field that Rovers are able to cover that?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think that's an area they need to look at for next season, really. I mean, obviously, it gives us a lot of punch going forward, especially in his first stint. And I think a lot of that's off the back of the ruck speed with Matty Parcell and whatnot. So, yeah, he's definitely a 𝐂𝐿𝐴 hero, isn't he? I can't remember last time I made an error, dropped a ball. So he's the biggest in these. He's our best prop at the moment. So
no, I think the only error he made was in the second half when he chucked out a crazy offload right near our try line, and I think that put us back about 10 metres. But we'll forgive him for that one because obviously it's part of the course.
Yeah, he don't make many, Chris, does he?
No, he doesn't. But at half-time, Craig, obviously 12-10, but following that, Jordan Abdul goes off with a head knock, and of course then we lose star man Michael Lewis with an ankle injury. It transpires it was a serious injury. He left the ground on crutches. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, which obviously is a huge blow because it rules him out, obviously, of Friday's game, but importantly for the Challenge Cup semi-final. At the time, Rovers had to deal with a bit of adversity there, didn't they, with losing Lewis and Abdul, but I think they responded pretty well, didn't they, in that opening 10-15 minutes of the second half?
Yeah, for me, that's where the togetherness was shown, the great determination, because I think Wood went off for a while as well, because I think he popped a rib, and at one point, I think you'd seen Abdul centre or Michael Lewis was centre. I couldn't work out who was playing where. You had like 𝐁𝐿𝐴𝐿𝐴 playing half-back at one point. But to come through that period, to get then Abdul back on, it was a massive effort. And I think eventually that won us the game.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a period of adversity. But thankfully, it was Rovers who scored the first try of the second half. We saw a bit of magic between Coote and Lynette. And then he fired over a really cute cut-out pass to Ryan Hall, who finished for his 5th try of the season. And Ryan Hall is definitely a player, isn't he, Mark, who seems to be finding his feet after a few games now. Yeah,
I think he was a bit quiet early doors, wasn't it? But the whole team wasn't it? But, I mean, his exit carries are excellent when we're under the cosh, aren't they? And you know what I mean? He just lacks a little bit of pace now, but don't we all? But no, he's like another forward, isn't he, really? And just adds to that. And I think that, as Karl said, if we could get another couple of forwards for next year, you know what I mean? With the exit sets from our backs as well, I think we'll do really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lachlan Coote starting to feature in the line a lot more, isn't he, Karl? We're starting to see his ability with the ball in hand, aren't we? He's definitely a threat, and he's adding another dimension to our attack now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we can keep him fit for the remainder of the season, I mean, we're going to be the right end, aren't we? I mean, I think there was a try where towards the back end of the game where he threw a ball out, and to be fair, it did go forward, but there ain't many players in our team that could sort of throw that ball, so he's paramount to what we do.
It was that Ollie one, wasn't it, really? The pass one, it looked a mile forward.
It's like
a bit Paul Cook-esque in it, that sort of pass, cut-out pass, which years sort of thing. So.
Well, I'm not being funny, Ryan Hall.
Yeah, but
after being at Leeds for so many years, he should be used to these line passes, shouldn't he?
Absolutely, mate.
I think they made a habit out of them passes, didn't they? So he should definitely be used to it. But when it goes in your favour, you don't ask any questions, do you? So
very quiet.
Yeah,
very quiet on Pruney. That is a fact. When someone like said, "I was a bit forward," that you know what I mean? I went, "No, I didn't see that." So.
Yeah, we've never seen when they're in our favour.
Flat
as a pancake when it's us. But Cass did starting to threaten, and they were starting to shift the ball out left and right. But both times the Rovers scrambling defence managed to overload the Tigers, and it came to nothing. But the Robins turned the screw. As Abdul's high kick was juggled by O'Brien before the ball fell to Milnes, who dived in under the post. And these high balls from Jordan Abdul, we've seen him, kick quite a few this season, haven't we? I think he's a top attacking kicker at the moment in Super League. Sometimes I question where these high balls are going and whether we're kicking them aimlessly, but he put that on an absolute sixpence, didn't he, for Gareth O'Brien. He couldn't deal with it, and obviously Roy Milnes takes the resulting spill. He goes over the line for a deserved try, and at that point, James, you thinking it's game over?
You never think it's game over with Rovers, do you? Until there's about 3 seconds left on the clock. But no, I think just going back to the point sort of Craig was making, I think there was a spell within, in that second half when it just felt as though the wheels potentially could come off, but they actually just gritted in and sort of bonded and just actually sorted it all out. And I thought that period was actually when there was really sort of cohesion and sort of the came good, and actually that helped build a platform for the future for the next tries coming on. It would have been. I just kept looking at the scoreboard, thinking we could do another score. You always look for another score, but starting to feel a bit more confident. But another score would be very nice.
And that score did come next when Sam Wood showed Kenny Edwards a huge left-handed fend and powered his way over the line from at least 20 metres out. At that time he had popped a rib. I think Craig had already mentioned he'd gone off. He'd come back on. Showed his toughness there. I'm sure Lee Radford won't be happy with Kenny Edwards defending for that try, but it was nice to see Sam would go over after a difficult start to the season. The knock-ons against Wigan, the game against Huddersfield, he probably didn't show his best. But him and Jimmy 𝐂𝐜𝐼𝐻 seem to be settled with a nice partnership there. What I would say is, though, Karl, there was a few times where Castleford threatened us down that right edge, didn't they? And there was at times I think there was left a little bit wanting, especially Jimmy 𝐂𝐜𝐼𝐻. Looked a little bit flat-footed, seemed to be watching the ball more than watching the man. And it's something that we're going to have to think about when we take on Hull on Friday, isn't it? Because we can't afford any more defensive lapses, especially when a game is going to be so tight.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you've got to give him a bit of credit, 𝐂𝐜𝐼𝐻, because he's been out the picture last season for a long time, and he's sort of Mr. Reliable, isn't he? So yeah, he's not perfect, but he's doing the job and he's playing well. So I certainly wouldn't change it. And yeah, it's going to be a lot difficult with Hull because obviously the big blokes, aren't they? But I thought Castleford, yourself at Castleford, they've got a lot of strike players, so they're going to create space, especially on the flanks. So I think as a whole, he's done okay there, Jimmy. One thing I would like to say is when Castle was having their period and was getting on top, I think we've got to give some big raps to 𝐁𝐿𝐼𝐿 and myself, because he was out on that right side for a good 10-minute spell, and he had to D up because there was a lot of big blokes coming at him, and I think he's right opposite me when it happened, but he put a hell of a shot on Jordan Turner, and I think he hobbled off in the end with a damaged wrist or something. So I think he's gone a little bit on the radar from last Friday with his defence. So big raps to 𝐁𝐿𝐼𝐿.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, is there, Craig, that since Parcell and Litton, they're starting to get that little dynamic back, aren't they? Where when they're on the pitch together, they definitely speed up the play for Rovers. And like Karl said there, he fronted up when Rovers were under the cosh a little bit, and he's a player who probably, for someone of his size, he puts himself about, doesn't he? And he's not afraid to go after the big man. But it's not only that; it's his attacking play as well, isn't it? You see him charging up and down the pitch, and it must be really interesting for the opposition to know how to deal with Litton and Parcell when they're both on the pitch at the same time, because at the moment it's almost like Litton's got a free roll.
Yeah, I actually thought that on Friday, watching Litton a bit more. I know what you're saying, Karl. When he went out, there was a lot of big lads running at him, and but he stood up well. And sometimes I think with Litton, it's more of like a conference player. If he gets that first start from dummy half in, he goes through players. I think it does him the world of good. But yeah, he's been brilliant coming off the bench, especially running at the props when they're tired. And yeah, like you said, with Parcell and Litton on, it's who they're going to pick up, who's running from dummy half. But it's a great option to have.
Yeah, and that try from Sam Wood and then the 𝐂𝐴𝐿and extras gave Rovers an 18-point advantage, which pretty much guaranteed them a place in the semi-finals of the Challenge Cup. But the scoring wasn't complete, though, as in the final minute, Jordan Abdul fielded a crossfield kick and shrugged off two cast defenders to outpace the covering defence, round off a fantastic 34 points 10 victory to the Robins. We've already spoke about, how Cass maybe got back into the game, but I've watched that game back, and in that second half, I know Castleford made a few errors. I think it was Griffin couldn't catch the ball, could he? I think he knocked it on 3-4 times. Westerman, same. But do you know what? I think it comes down to what I think Craig said about the Rovers' togetherness, the spirit, the adversity that was faced with Lewis and Abdul. It seemed to really galvanise them, and we saw that in the covering defence. And James, at the end of the day, I don't think Castleford can argue with that result.
No, I don't think they can. I think, that second half, as you say, it was just complete. It was gritty, determined effort. And, to keep a team like Cass scoreless for a whole half, I think, just testament to how good the defence were. And, you look at you mentioned the errors that Cass were making, and that's probably more because the pressure Rovers were putting them under, forcing them to chase the game. And I thought it was, very funny at the end when Kenny Edwards spat his dummy out quite spectacularly.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it was quite. It wasn't Kenny Edwards. It was the tackle on 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿, wasn't it? Was it Greg Eden?
Greg Eden smacked 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿 around the chops. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you saw Kenny Edwards have a go, and then I think the referee had a word with him, didn't he? And then you saw him
did it again.
pretty much do it again. Yeah, which you think he could have maybe had a bit more of a talking to by the referee, but obviously it got to Castleford because I think they'll have been frustrated with some of the errors they were making. Basic errors, simple knock-ons, but I think that's because of the pace of the Rovers' defence and the way we played. We didn't allow them to get onto the front foot, which was a real credit to Robins, especially like we said with Abdul going off, with Mikey Lewis going off, and I think, Mark, like we've already said, it's great to have someone like Roy Mills there wanting just to steady the ship when previous games gone by, we've probably folded at points like that.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about this Rovers side now, especially obviously it took us 2 or 3 games to get into our side, didn't it, a little bit, and I think the actual 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿 thing has helped us out a little bit, because I don't think that Smith would have left him out the side, really. And I think that there was a mood in the team then that wasn't really right, so dynamic. I'm not just blaming Brad 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿, and seemingly with these young British kids we've got in, and obviously some excellent overseas in Parcell, 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿 and Lynette and Kenny Dowell. But I think we're a far better unit with Brad 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿 out the side.
Yeah, and I did mention about our right edge defence, but you know what, it might, I might have questioned it, but it was nowhere near as bad as when 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿 was lining up on the right edge. So, maybe that's just a sign of how far we've come since he has been dropped from the side. There was a few man of the matches knocking about. I think Elliot Minchella, I think he deserves, big raps. I think Matty Parcell. I mean, the last couple of games he's been absolutely incredible, hasn't he? Karl, what about you? Would you have gone for man of the match?
I'd have probably gone Minchella. I think he got the man match on the night, didn't he? But so I'd have gone Minchella. But like you say, there was a couple that ran in close, to be fair. But I thought Minchella's first stint was absolutely outstanding, in D and attack, and I just thought it was outstanding all around. So I think the sponsored man of the match got it right.
Yeah, Craig, it's been well documented on it. His recovery from his injury and how he's bounced back from that, and now you've seen it in his performances. What impresses me, though, is the way he's been linked in with Parcell down that middle of the pitch, and he's such a dynamic loose forward, isn't he? I don't think teams know how to deal with him at the moment, because he's quite comfortable running the ball. He's strong, powerful, but he's dynamic as well, and he's able to go left and right, and he's got an offload, and he's always backing up. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Who would you have gone for man of the match?
It would have been out of Parcell or Minchella. I think just what you said, Minchella, he had a full season out last year practically, and he's come in, and I thought it would have taken him a lot longer, to be honest. And he's getting better every week, and it's scary because last week I honestly thought he was brilliant. It's like he dictates the pace of the game at times. He looks for them gaps to run into with an offload, and he's defending well. It's not just his attack; he's actually getting stuck in defending. Is strong. So yeah, I'd go Minchella.
Yeah, and what about you, James?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick. It was hard. I think it's hard to pick an individual out of that really great team performance. But I agree with the guys. I'd go with Minchella. It's just sort of he's just getting better and better each game. And I think he's outstanding against Warrington, and on Friday night he just took it to another level. It was just totally unplayable, I think, for Cass. They just couldn't handle him at all. And as you say, he's forming a great partnership with Parcell as well, and the two of them together just think of the yards they're making. It's just something we've missed for a long time.
Yeah,
it's great to see.
And we saw that in the opening 20 minutes, didn't we? That that pace, intensity. It takes it to another level. I think a special mention must also go to the Rovers fans who were there on Friday night. I think they really added to it. They responded to the team's performance. They turned out in good numbers. I know there was a bit of criticism after the league game about how many people turned up, etc. But Friday night for a game that was televised, I thought it was a good turnout, good numbers, but also they backed the boys, and it came through loud and clear. When the Robins were on top, because it was a time when we really needed to respond to Castleford coming at us, and I think the fans deserve special praise for that. Mark, we've drawn Huddersfield Giants in the Challenge Cup semi-final. We travel over to Elland Road on the 7th of May. It's now been confirmed. We're going to kick off at 5 p.m. Part of a triple header with the Women's Challenge Cup final. So I'm sure you'll be in the ground early for that one, Mark. And then it's followed by Wigan and Saints. Many people surprised that they've got the early kick-off, where Rovers and Huddersfield are the tea time, but I'm not surprised with the entertainers for a reason, aren't we? So we'll be prime time box office viewing on BBC One, hopefully. So I'm not surprised at all. But is that the best draw we could have hoped for?
Yeah, I think it was all. It's not been undermining and anything disrespectful to Huddersfield. They're a good side, aren't they? But yeah, you wouldn't want St Helens for definite, would you? We're going to push, but we all wanted Huddersfield out the draw, and we've got a 50-50 chance, haven't we? And if we turn up on the day, we've got a more than good chance of getting to not White Hart Lane, is it? London Stadium, is it? Something like that?
Yeah, White Hart, Tottenham Stadium and Elland Road. It's been the scene of some famous games for the Robins, hasn't it, James? I'm not picking on you because you look the oldest, but obviously you look back at games gone by. Our last Heritage cast, of course, we had John Dorhay on, who featured superbly in at Elland Road, and it's going to be a special occasion, isn't it, for the Robins, as once again we travel to Leeds in a Challenge Cup semi-final.
Yeah, it is, and that listening to Dory on the podcast just really brought back memories of the replay in '86, and it's still probably one of my favourite Rovers games ever. It was just such a magical night. 30,000 people in Elland Road. It was such a tight game in that first half, and then second half, Rovers just pulled away 17-0, and the whole atmosphere and the whole ground was just incredible. And just hoping, we can have a repeat performance next month. I think, as Mark said, I think, we all wanted Huddersfield, and as they said, it's no disrespect to Huddersfield. They are a very good team, as we've seen already this season. But by the same token, I think they'll have been pleased to draw Rovers as well. So, they'll see the chance of beating us just like we see the chance of beating them. And I think we've progressed since we played them in round 2. And hopefully by the time we come to play them in May, we'll have progressed even further, and it'll be an absolute cracker of a game, and we'll win. Yeah,
and I think the only thing with Huddersfield is that people are thinking, are they as good as what they are? Are they the early pace setters? Are they that surprise team? And maybe they might fade away. I think the team to avoid is St Helens, isn't it? We saw them go over to Catalan and did a number on them, and Wigan. they look like they're grinding out victories, don't they? So, them two are probably the ones that you didn't want to play. But hopefully, Craig, Rovers fans will turn up in big numbers, won't they, to back the boys, because it's, like we said, 80 minutes from a Challenge Cup final. What's pleasing for me is that the games are coming thick and fast in the Challenge Cup. Normally, you have a long wait, don't you, before you win the Challenge Cup, and then you might be waiting a month and a half, 2 months before the semis and then the final, etc. Whereas the final, towards the end of May, it's to think, in over a month's time, we could have our hands on the Challenge Cup trophy. And I know, but we could have our hands on the Challenge Cup trophy. It's exciting times, isn't it, for the Robins?
Yeah, definitely. And I think after the Cast game, Rovers put some details out, and within the next morning, by the time I phoned on, I think Rovers had sold over 1,000 tickets already. So there's going to be good backing. There's going to be fans that are still going to get the tickets. I know it's the middle of the month, and payday is usually at the end of the month for quite a lot of people. But it's going to be a great day out. Obviously, it'd be even better if we win. But like you said, the Challenge Cup game's coming round thick and fast, and which I prefer, to be honest. Then obviously you've got the rest of the season to concentrate on, but obviously big game against Huddersfield. Oh, I think I said that in one of the first podcasts. I think Huddersfield will be up there this year because Ian Watson, he's a good coach. Obviously I'd rather play Huddersfield than St Helens in the semi.
Yeah, and all I'd say is we're going to have to play better than when we played them earlier on in the season when we travelled over in the snow. And pretty much a shocking.
100% more.
But obviously, it's a different Rovers team now, isn't it? They seem to have got the mojo back. So, it's going to be very interesting to see how this pans out. But before we preview a game that definitely is an our cup final, we'll talk about Tony Smith. News broke that he's entered contract negotiations. It's news we've all been hoping was coming and was all waiting for. Obviously, the news that Leeds had sacked their head coach, Tony Smith, was in the frame for that. There was rumours about whether he was going to take the job, where he'd be at the end of the season. But it's been announced that not announced, but the rumours are that Tony Smith's opened contract negotiations, Mark. It looks like he'll be signing a short-term contract. I think he's pretty chilled out about it, isn't it? But one thing that definitely does need sorting out is his contract, because we've got the likes of Dean Hadley, Elliot Manchella, Albert Vete, Corbin Sims, Brad Takarangi, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Kane Lynette, Matty Parcell, Ben Crooks, Will Marr, Jimmy Kynehorst, Sam Wood, Greg Richards, Will Tate, all out of contract at the end of the season. And if you're expecting players to sign a contract, the players probably expect to know who their head coach is going to be next season, don't they, Mark?
Yeah, well, I've heard quite a few negative vibes about it, really, early on, that he was leaving. I was went to Benalmadena with the lads about 3 weeks ago, and I was stood up at the front of the plane talking to some Leeds fans who know, not Tony Smith so much, but maybe someone else on our staff. And the feeling was that he might walk, you know what I mean? So I'm really pleased to hear that he's hopefully going to stay on for another year, because development-wise, Rovers-wise, the players aren't going to stay, or they need to know who's going to be in charge next year, don't they, so that they can actually commit themselves. So it's really good news if it is true. Really good news.
Yeah, and obviously good news, Karl, that Tony Smith is open contract talks, hopefully. But there's a couple of players there, aren't they, that we hopefully are entering contract talks, and we've already give big raps to Elliot Manchella, but we need to get him tied down, don't we? Because we don't want to see him ending up at any Super League sides.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of months ago when they was talking about Tony Smith and the Leeds rumours and whatnot, I was sort of on the fence with it all. And as it went by, I was thinking, I think he might go. And this news coming out, was it today, yesterday, he's in talks and all this type of business. I'm thinking, I think he'll stay now, because a few weeks back, we hadn't purchased the stadium. There was a lot of, stuff, unforeseen stuff going on. And now all this positive news has come by in the last few weeks. I think he will pen a deal, and that'll make the players pen a deal. So, I mean, the future is bright on and off the field, isn't it? So, let's be honest. Why wouldn't he? He's built something here. Let's see if we can get some silverware in the cabinet. On and off the field, we're looking marvellous, and I think it's the best Rovers have been in a long while, isn't it? So yeah, I think it will happen, and I think the players will follow suit.
Yeah, and Craig, obviously, I think all the rumours started pretty much when he didn't turn up for that press conference, and everyone started putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5. Tony Smith is quite a cool character, isn't he? He doesn't seem to be under too much pressure, and he seems to have a good relationship with Paul Lakin and probably Neil Udgell. And the fact that can be growing up about it, I think he's good behind the scenes. But players need a bit of certainty, don't they? And do you expect to see him maybe do a 1-year contract and then to review it on that basis?
Yeah, I think he spoke before about short-term deals because he wants everything to be clicking for him, but not just him, at the club itself as well, on and off the field. But if I'm right in saying, I'm sure players can talk to other clubs from the 1st of May. So I'm thinking Rovers will definitely want to get him tied down before the 1st of May, and then obviously start talking to the players, getting them signed up for a couple of year contracts, like especially Minchella, get him tied down to a long-term deal. But in an ideal world, I'd love Rovers to announce Tony Smith signed a contract just before kick-off on Good Friday. The atmosphere would be absolutely buzzing at Craven Park.
Yeah. Like we did when the announcement Neil Udgell was staying on.
Sorry, you wouldn't rule that out, would you, in fairness? And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these players have already signed, but they're just waiting to announce them. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping for. Just to keep drip feeding the good news, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah. And just before we move on, obviously, congratulations to Joe Appleyard, who's obviously going to be the new Hull KR reporter for Hull Daily Mail, taking over from James O'Brien. So hopefully I'll be able to tap him up on some of these contract negotiations. Hopefully he's getting the inside story.
He won't talk to you now, Chris.
No.
You'll get the sack, Chris, one of the two.
He's changed already. It's changed already.
Yeah. But no, we're going to attempt something that I never thought I'd say now, and that's have a sensible conversation with a Hull FC fan. We've got a good friend of mine, Steve Lazenby, who's joining us to help preview our Good Friday fixture against our bitterest of rivals, Hull FC. It's the first game we've welcomed them to Craven Park since 2019. It's going to be a sellout. It's going to be a great occasion, but obviously, it's all about that result, isn't it? Regardless of anything else. So I'm just going to introduce Steve. Good evening, Steve. How are you doing, mate?
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Yeah, that's probably the most things we're going to get out of you this evening. Can you hear us? For those listening on the podcast, he's just trying to work out his microphone.
Is that a cardboard cutout? Oh, he's moved.
Right. Well, while Steve tries to work while Steve tries and works his microphone out, boys, obviously it is a huge game, isn't it? And it's not only a huge game because, of course, we're playing LFC, but them 2 points are really important to us now, aren't they? And we're going into a crucial Easter period where to lose, we play them on Monday. But Mark, obviously, when we play the derby, we talked a little bit about it before we came on air. When it's for you, is it all about just the victory? It's not about the performance, is it?
Both go hand in hand, really, don't they? But 100%, it's all about the result, isn't it? I don't enjoy them. I don't think anybody enjoys them unless you actually get them 2 points. So they're a bit daunting, aren't they? Usually full of beer, aren't you? In fact, well, I am. So they're always a bit vague anyway. So, it's all about the win. And but I'd take scrappy in a 1 point win, obviously, but it would be nice to put a performance in as well. But always very tough games, aren't they? You just don't know what's going to happen, do you? Are you in the game, Steve? No. Yeah,
we're still trying to get hold of Steve. Karl, going into that derby game on Friday, what are you hoping for?
God knows, mate. Honestly, I'm getting nervous now thinking about it. And I'm not nervous because of the game. It's because I'm only next to you. So, no. All jokes aside, I think Mark's 100% right. I don't give a crap how they played. Just get the job done. Give us the bragging rights for another few months. The performance would be nice, but if it doesn't happen and they get the win, nobody's going to complain, are they? So,
and Rovers did provide an injury update during the week about some players, didn't they? Obviously, they confirmed that Mikey Lewis will be unavailable for 6 to 8 weeks with a halfback rupture in his ligaments in his ankle, which is obviously quite a serious injury. Will Dagger had overcame his man in injury and obviously featured for the club's reserves. Albert Vette and Dean Hadley was supposed to be pushing for next week's game against Wakefield, although Dean Hadley has been named in the squad for Friday. Tom Garrett, he rejoined training after being stood down for 11 days because of suffering from concussion symptoms. And Louis Johnson is closing on his return and is looking to rejoin training in the next coming of weeks. But the squad was announced earlier this afternoon for the game, with Lachlan Coote being named, as well as Ben Crooks, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Ryan Hall, Jordan Abdul, Matty Parcell, George King, Dean Hadley, Kane Lynette, Matty Staunton, Jez Litton, Corbin Sims, Elliot Minchella, Jim Kinehorst, Will Dagger, Ryan Milnes, Will Marr, Ethan Ryan, Sam Wood, Greg Richards, and Frankie Holton. James, just before we go into that squad, no Brad Takarangi. Is it a game too soon for him, do you think?
Nah, I wouldn't have played him anyway, because he doesn't deserve his place on merit anyway. After where Sam Wood's been playing over the last few games, it'd be a bit unfair to drop him. And from all accounts, I don't think Takarangi was pulling any trees up in the reserve grade at Leeds the other night either. So no, I wouldn't have picked him anyway.
Yeah, and Craig, the obvious absentee from that squad is Tom Garrett, isn't it? We expected him to be back in training after being stood down through concussion, but he's going to be a big miss, isn't he? Because he didn't have the best of starts maybe to the season, but he's someone who's really made that prop position his own, and I think he's going to be a really big miss on Friday.
Yeah, again, he stepped up massively. I'm gutted for him, to be honest, because before this injury, the head knock, he was playing really well. He was getting on the front foot. He was getting the quick play of the balls, which was helping Parcell. I think that's where we possibly could struggle on Friday. But sooner we're getting back, the better for me.
Steve, I think we've got you on board now. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. Sorry about the little hiccup. It's the internet in East Hull. It doesn't work as it was in West Hull. So although I'm a West Hull lad officially, I do live in East Hull. So I'll blame that at the minute. So I could always see laughing at me. So I'm here now and I can hear every word you're saying.
Well, with the speed you was texting me, Steve, I could tell you was using all of your 6 fingers there.
Oh, thanks. Here we go.
Yeah. But no, I said to keep it cordial, Steve. Obviously, I really appreciate you coming on. And it's good to get a bit of an insight because I know you think I'm obsessed with Hull FC, but I really are, so it's going to be good to get your input. Often I tell you about team news, don't I, before you...
Yeah, I mean, if I want to know anything about Hull FC, just ask Chris, because he's a font of all knowledge. I don't know where he gets some of the insights from, but he gathers. In fact, he's probably in the ear of Brett Hodgson a lot of the time.
But no, we just announced the Rovers squad for Friday, Steve. I'll just go through the whole squad. You got Jake Connor, Swift, Tom of Ivy, Griffin, McIntosh, Reynolds, Gale, Sow, Houghton, Satai, Savelio, Mao, Lane, Lovadua, Evans, Fash, McNamara, Brown, Johnston, Bowden, and Jabani. Have I said that right, Steve? You
can just call him Mitch. I do.
Well, I'll tell you what I will call him, Steve, but I'll probably have to put a bleep button on. So we'll say that for now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time he's picked an unchanged squad for a long. Well, I think it must be the first time ever while Brett's been there. So I still think there'll be a few subtle changes. I think the Huddersfield game, I think we'll see Luke Gale and. Obviously Grubb. They'll be starting in the halfbacks this way. So Josh Reynolds will be starting with Luke there. Lovadua, I think he'll probably go as he did in that game, revert to loose man. And I think he'll get spelled with Jordan Lane, who'll come in as well in that particular area. Whether Tom of Ivy plays or not, I don't know if it's still a game too early. He's still struggling. As in with the press conference with Brett Hodgson yesterday, and he's still undecided. He'll leave that until 13 in the time to make his mind up. But if he does come in, it will solid our centre position up, because I think that's where we've been weak over that side. So hopefully, if he does come in, he never does anything wrong. He's Mr. Consistent. He's been a great acquisition for all over the years. So hopefully he can get back to where he was when before he picked his injury up.
Yeah, and we've just been talking about, yes, derby is important. You know, we all want bragging rights. It's vitally important to get one over on your bitter rivals. But them 2 points are really important, aren't they? Because, you know, obviously you play Warrington on Monday, Rovers go to Toulouse. You get 2 points, and if you can get 6 points out of this weekend, it really sets you up, doesn't it, going into next round of fixtures. So, you know, the 2 points are massively important. For you, though, where do you think Hull's strengths are, and how do you think they'll be? Rovers will maybe stand up to that?
Yeah, I think you're right, Chris. I think, you know, all the tense intensity and the hype leading up to the game, ultimately, you know, it's what happens on the pitch. And I think, you know, if the players keep focused, and it'll be an enjoyable game of rugby, where we tend to lose it, I think they get caught up in the game themselves and they end up being dour ones. But I think, you know, we've got 2 good coaches now who'll keep us focused. Our game plan is what it has been for a few years now. I think Brett Hodgson's brought it back, where we've got some big lads who'll just batter down the middle, and then we'll, you know, hopefully sort of batter you into submission in the best way of putting it. But I think where we went wrong last week against Huddersfield was trying to play, you know, like the Harlem Globetrotters and slinging the ball out wide, which their forwards, they're agile, they're quick, and they've got able to get out there wide and close us down. So it was really ineffective, and we didn't stick to our game plan of letting the big lads run down the middle, and then let the backs and you know, come through for us. So that I think that'll be our, you know, I don't think it's any top secret. I think, you know, it's been widely known for every team how we actually play on a game.
Yeah, James, I know you're not a massive fan of Jake Connor in defence, but there's no doubt he's got some attacking prowess, and he's the Super League top assists with 12, and I think he was just named, was he Super League Man of the Month or something?
Yeah,
a ridiculous award for that he's received. But how do Rovers go about keeping him quiet? Because there's no doubt that if he's on his game, he's a handful for anybody.
Yeah, he is, and he's we do take the mickey out of him, and he has got, you know, no pace, but if you allow him to play the ball too, you know, close to the line, he can just open you up. As to how we can stop him, God knows. I'll leave that in the more than capable hands of Tony Smith.
yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And many people, who thought maybe his career was coming to an end at Hull, Danny Houghton, he's still tearing up each week, isn't he? I mean, he's top tackler in Super League with 300. Frankie Holton, he's down in 5th with 259 tackles. Danny Houghton's got the second most marker tackles, which is interesting because you've got they're lining up against Matty Parcell, who's got the most dummy runs, 45, and then you've got Jez Litton down in 3rd with 31. So obviously, you know, Danny Houghton, he's going to be busy on Friday, isn't he? If he's going to be trying to stop them too. But how important is Danny Houghton to you? Because I know there's still some maybe dissenting voices in the black and white camp about how much game time he does get.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you'd have asked me 3 years ago if we get rid of Jez Litton or Dan Houghton, it'd have been a no-brainer. And you know, you'd be welcoming Danny Houghton to your club at the moment. But I think he sort of reinvented his game. He did mention that he'd fell out of love with rugby league, and I think he's got that spark back now. I still think, you know, he is not out and out a tackling machine. He'll just keep going. He's like that Duracell bunny. But I just think he still just lacks a little bit in attack. He'll run from dummy half at the wrong time, make that scoot when there's no players to pass to, and it's ineffective. And he does the same when we've got that people. When there is people, then he doesn't scoot and he sends the ball the wrong way. So, you know, there's them little annoyances to his game. But, you know, you can't fault his defence, and, you know, that's probably what's been kept him going and why he's been selected.
Yeah, Craig, obviously, I revealed the Rovers squad earlier, and there's some big calls to make, isn't there? Because we've got, you know, one of the things that was levelled at Rovers against Castleford is that we looked a little bit weak on the bench. Obviously, Corbin Sims featured against Leeds in the reserves. How do you see us lining up on the bench? Because you know, when you look at Hull's, you know, predicted lineup, they've got Jordan Lane, Brad Fash, Kane Evans, Jack Brown. I wouldn't say, Steve, that was the heaviest, but it'd be interesting just to hear Craig to see how he'd line up Rovers on Friday.
Yeah, I think Matty Staunton, Jez Litton are definite 2. It's going to be a toss-up between, you know, you've got Sims possibly coming into it. But I think Sims will cover 𝐂𝐿𝐜𝐿𝐼 forward possibly. That'll leave place for, Dean Hadley. He knows the derby well. He's experienced. If you're coming up against maybe that Brown, he's not going to be the most experienced player for Hull coming off the bench. I think we'll need some experience coming off there.
Yeah, Mark, you probably had it in your career where you've been dropped down into the reserves to give you a kick up the backside and then put back into the first team to try and get a performance out of you. Do you think that's what's happened with Sims here?
Not many times. We had a squad of 13, mate, so it didn't happen very often. Yeah. But, no, I think that I actually was sad enough to watch the reserves the other day. I had a quiet day, so I watched that. And Sims did actually put a shift in. And so obviously, I think with the lack of Garrett, Johnson and Vete, I think Sims has to be on the bench, if I'm honest, for a little bit of size and aggression. Then I'd put Greg Richards on there. Big fan of Dean Hadley, but he's injury prone, and you haven't got the foreigners being injured. He's not quite big enough, is he? And his body quite brave as a lion, but I just think he misses too many games. Maybe send him to Toulouse on Monday if he's fit.
Yeah, Stephen, obviously Dean Hadley, it's a great point Mark made. He's obviously a consummate professional, real nice kid, but you just don't get enough minutes out of him, do you? And obviously that's probably why he ended up at Rovers from Hull in the first place. Yeah,
and it's a shame because I think he is quite skillful. He'll put a shift in for you, but he does have to have that tendency to pick up knocks quite easily. And if he plays 2 or 3 on the bounce, that's as best as you can hope for because he's going to be missing for 4 or 5 then. So I don't know where rugby league's a brutal sport, as we all know, but I think it's some people react to it better than others. So that constant heavy hits. But I wouldn't say he's made of chocolate or anything, but he does tend to pick injuries up, and possibly why Hull made that decision. But when he is on the field and when he is performing, he can stand up. He can stand his own ground.
Yeah, and Karl, Sam Wood did pop a rib. It'd be interesting to see how he's reacted to that. Jimmy Kynhorse, maybe a little bit suspecting in defence on Friday. Ethan Ryan scored 4 tries in the reserves against Leeds. If you look through that Rovers team, you'd say there's probably a distinct lack of pace. Is this a game for either an Ethan Ryan or a Ben Crooks to feature? Obviously, Ben Crooks knows what all the derby's about, doesn't he? It's not the first time he'll have played in one. So can you see a change, or is the best route to go unchanged and try and keep building?
No, I think he'll stick with, obviously, barring the obvious of Michael Lewis being injured. That's obviously an easy replacement, isn't it, with Milnes and Abdul in the halves? But I think the only thing will change, it'll be the bench. It'll be, obviously, one of the biggest sides in the comp, so I think he'll go big on the bench. But obviously, he'll decide that on game day, won't he? But I think he'll stick with the starting 13. It'll just be the bench if there's a couple of tweaks, if any at all. So I think he'll don't change it for winning.
What we do know is that every time we play derby, there's always a late change in the squad, in the starting lineup. We see it nearly every game, don't we? So it's going to be interesting to see what drama holds on Friday. Josh Reynolds comes back into the side, Steve. Like you mentioned, Luke Gale, obviously had a bit of a stint out, didn't he, for his 5-game ban?
Yeah.
Josh Reynolds, is he the kind of player who shows up on the big occasion, or are you just not seeing enough of him yet to know that?
I think the best way of putting it, I think he does a bit of work in the background, and he's not all the most dazzling. I think when he first came, we thought, wow, we've got somebody who can actually move around the field, move the ball around the field, and move people around the field. Now, whether it's a lack of consistency with his playing partner, although he did have Mark Sneed, who's Mark with all the best. He's not the most gifted of scrum halves, but he'll kick teams to death. But I think if giving him this is the only 3rd time he's set up with Luke, so give him a bit of time to settle into some kind of established relationship there. And maybe not this game, but we'll see what they're like in 4 or 5 games time when they've had that regular game time together.
Yeah, and that's one thing you don't get in the derby, is it time. You've got to be on your mettle 100 mile an hour from the start, and that's been a feature of Rovers for at least the last couple of games. A really fast start. Obviously, Hull got to a slow start against Huddersfield and never seemed to recover. Has that been a feature of the Hull side this season?
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the Wigan game as well. We started off, the first 10 minutes was under the cosh, and I was thinking, God, how many is this going to go? You know, I'm going to get shoved past us tonight. And then all of a sudden we got into the game. We came out second half. The first thing you don't want to do after taking a lead just before half time is concede a try straight after it, and we did. And it let them back in the game. And I think all that hard work defending at the front end of the game left us with nothing in the tank at the back end. And I think that's where they made some better decisions, especially the drop goal, when we had a couple of opportunities to do it. But I don't think our sort of mental aptitude was there, and certainly any energy left in the legs.
Yeah. To be fair, I think, like we've already mentioned, it's so hard to call it a derby result, but I'd say this is maybe one of the closest and hardest ones to predict for a long time, maybe just because of how similar both sides are doing. Obviously, Hull are only 2 points in front of us in the league table. If you look through the stats, you know, there's not much difference between both sides in the statistics, so it's going to be a really interesting encounter. Imagine that nobody on the east side of Hull takes any notice of Hull's results and couldn't name a player for a toffee. Who's the one player that would be who could be the difference on Friday for the Black and Whites?
Oh, for me, I think it would be one or two people. 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐿, I think he's been playing tremendously as a forward. He's doing everything right. He's tackling. He's making some great yards. And he's not just making great yards. He's dragging men with him. He's busting them tackles, which sets a nice platform up. But I think Josh Griffin and Adam Swift, they've been bringing some, ball off the line, giving them forwards a rest. And I think if the forwards can perform and all their energy is focused on, running themselves, because even Josh Griffin is not the fastest, but he can see a gap. And if he can get Adam on us outside of him, then, he's lightning. So I think they're probably three of the key players. I know we've spoke about 𝐁𝐜𝐜𝐿. Again, depend on which Jake turns up, I suppose. He can be brilliant on occasions, but he can also do some stupid things, as you know. And then let's see where the halves go. But I think that 𝐿𝐴𝐿 for me has been outstanding recently. I think Jake and Josh and Adam on the wing, they're running quite close as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve. Great speaking to you, mate. Thanks for the insight. I won't wish you the best of luck on Friday. I wish you the worst luck in the world. I hope you get absolutely tonked. I hope the next time I speak to you...
And obviously that's reciprocated. So, yeah, no worries.
See you later, Steve.
See ya. Bye.
Cheers,
Steve. Obviously, lads, what you would say is all fans are 100% happy with their side at the moment, are they? They've been a little bit indifferent, and what you'd say is Rovers are coming into the game on a good run of form. We're going for 4 wins in a row. Is it too a bit too presumptuous to make Rovers favourite, Mark?
I think actually on performances over the last 2 or 3 weeks we are favourites, which I don't like that. As a Rovers fan, I don't like that favourite tag, if I'm honest. What was noticeable about their squad numbers, isn't it? 1 to 13, basically. It just shows you that we've got a lot more depth now in our squad than we have had for a few years. If you look at our 27, 28 squad numbers, stuff like that, theirs are like 1 to 13, aren't they? So realistically, they're at full strength, allegedly, cap-wise, aren't they? But I think if we can repel them forwards in the first 20 minutes and move them around a little bit, I think we can go on and win the game and hopefully say bye-bye to them for the next 10 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And thanks, Joseph Dawson, for joining us on YouTube. He says, tend to think FC are at their worst when they're wound up, getting Grubb and Connor to lose their heads. Anyone in the Rover squad prepared to get under the skin of FC? Is there anyone in the squad who's like that, do you reckon, James? Or do we let the rugby do the talking and that winds up the opposition enough?
I don't think there is, to be honest. I think we do just let the rugby do the talking and let the opposition get wound up by us letting the rugby do the talking. I don't think that's the way. The best way it is. Because if you've got a few hotheads in your team, then chances are they're going to do something stupid. You look at talk about Connor, as Steve said, he can do brilliant 1 minute and do something stupid the next, and that puts the whole team at a disadvantage. But no, just let the rugby do the talking. Let Hull worry about Rovers. Don't need to wound them up. Just let the rugby do the talking.
Yeah, and Karl, he took the words out of my mouth, but Finlay Clark just said Corbin Sims. If he does play on Friday, the last thing we need is him running around like an headless chicken trying to smash into anyone. Because a man of his experience should be able to play a game like this, shouldn't he? Whether he's in the side at all, we don't know yet, do we? Because obviously Tony Smith went with Greg Richards. What did you make of Greg Richards' display on Friday, Craig?
To be honest, I think I've said a couple of times now, I was never his biggest fan, but you know what? His work rate, it was there to be seen on Friday. I thought he put himself about. He's not going to be the strongest ball carrier, so I'd like to see him used in a different way when attacking. But defensively, I think he's getting stuck in. He's not the biggest of players either. But yeah, he puts his body on his line, and I thought he did well defensively on Friday.
Yeah, and thanks to Matt Charles from N Charles Bookmakers up in Brilliant, and he sent through some odds for me. And if we can't call it, the bookies aren't doing a great job either, because they've got Rovers at 4-5 outright. Hull FC are evens. If you go on the handicap, Hull FC are +2 at 10-11. Rovers 10-11 with a tie at 16. And then if you go to the point margins, they're almost level as well. So, I think it's a really difficult one to call. But I think, do you find, James, that when we play the derby, that no matter what's gone before, both teams stands an equal chance when they go over that whitewash and onto the pitch?
Yeah, they do. I mean, like Mark said, I don't think anybody really looks forward to them deep down. I absolutely hate them. And I've been to a game of derbies when we've been the favourites and we've got battered. When Hull have been the favourites, we've battered them. It's just it's a cliche, but it is just what happens on the day. And I always go with the attitude or the thought beforehand, expecting the worst. So if we do, in the event we do get beat, I'm not too disappointed. But if we win, I'm absolutely elated. So yeah, it's
enjoy rather than enjoy.
Yeah,
Mark,
exactly. Yeah,
it's not just the entertainment on the pitch, is it? Obviously, the ratings are performing. Are you looking forward to seeing them, Mark?
Yeah, I've actually picked some up over the last couple of 3 months, really. That's a couple of tunes and it's really quality, in it, a bit like 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐫𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐿, in it, really. So even a man of my certain age, I do actually admire it. He's throwing some shapes after a couple of flat lagers, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Fantastic album review there you got, Mark. They should put that maybe on their.
Exactly. Yeah.
But no, I think one of the features about Rovers it is about that match day experience, isn't it? It's not just purely about the 80 minutes of rugby. Obviously, the derby itself doesn't need much selling, does it? But there's going to be a fantastic atmosphere on Friday. I think Craven Street's open from 10:30. Alcohol served from 11. The only thing I would say is that it goes flat as a pancake when you've lost on it. I can't wait to get home.
They're not letting Hull fans in, are they? It's Craven Street.
No, I think home fans only. Although games gone by, I've seen Hull fans in the East Stand even, which is crazy. I'd never get their on that. And don't know how that's allowed to happen, and who's brave enough to do that. But Karl, it's Friday afternoon. Rugby League at Craven Park. The sun should be shining. It's a whole derby, sell-out crowd. The ratings are performing. It's going to be a good day out, isn't it? Yeah, you can't hear him, but he's saying, yeah, it's going to be brilliant, especially because I'm going with you. That's what he just said. Yeah, but no, it's set to be a really fantastic afternoon of rugby league. And I'm not going to put you on the spot for predictions because it's the hardest game of all to call. But Craig, when you look at our predicted starting lineup, this is a chance where you can make a name for yourself. We've seen it with Jimmy Carnos in the past, haven't we? He scores a last-minute try. Goes down in Rovers folklore, and it's an opportunity for somebody else to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be past 𝐂𝐴𝐿, or 𝐂𝐜𝐿. I think them three there, the game winners. We get on the front foot. We get a few tries past them early. I think they'll lose their heads. And Rovers, again, like James was saying earlier, let the rugby do the talking. But I think one of them three, match winner there.
Yeah, I've not seen. Has anyone seen who the referee is for Friday yet? I've not seen.
James Child.
James Child. So that'll be
Taylor on the video.
Yeah, Ben Failer on the video. I've not seen much of Ben Failer actually refereeing games this season.
It's been the championship, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Let's put some timber on, I think, can I? Let's put some cake on. Yeah.
But no, lads, thanks for joining me. A special, huge thank you to Steve. I know he was a bit perturbed about coming on and speaking about Hull. Like I said, thank you to Craig, Mark, James, and Karl for joining me on this week's Red Robin podcast, which is, of course, powered by 360 Chartered Accountants. Before we sign off, lads, what are your plans for Friday? How are you going to be taking in the game?
I'm going to Witherspoons at 9 in town, which is ridiculous going from Eastall to town to come back into Eastall. So I've got a minibus ordered at 11:15 because we need a Witherspoons where Crown used to be, really, don't we? In fairness, in Eastall. So, and then getting to Rovers about 11 o'clock, go straight to Craven Street, I think, because usually go to Red Hell. So that's my pre-match.
Yeah, what about you, Craig?
Yeah, I'm getting to Craven Street for actually 10:30. I'll be in that B queue. I'll be too nervous. I'll have the shakes and everything. So 10:30 at Craven Street and just waiting for the bar to open.
And James, is it a case of just trying to kill as much time as possible in the lead up to kick-off?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I drive to every game anyway, so I don't really have a drink, but I just be trying to calm the nerves and just try not to think about it.
Yeah, well, everything is set for a fantastic afternoon of rugby league on Friday. And remember, we can all play our part in roaring the boys to victory. And don't forget, Eastall boys as an upstairs and sells budgies.